3 countries, 1 World Cup, and somehow nobody's fighting over it. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is being co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, which sounds like an amazing diplomatic achievement until you realize the US basically got handed 78 out of 104 matches and said, yeah, this works for us. But here's what nobody's explaining. How does this actually function? Who controls what? Who gets the big games? And why does Canada only get to host group stage matches while the US gets the final? Stick around. I'm going to break the whole thing down in the next few minutes, and by the end, you'll understand this tournament better than most people watching it. First, why 3 countries at all? This has never happened before in World Cup history. 1 country, 1 tournament. That was always the rule, but 2026 broke it. And the reason is simple. This is the first World Cup with 48 teams instead of 32. More teams means more matches. 104 total, up from 64. That's basically adding an entire extra tournament on top of the old one. No single country, not even the US, wanted to build that many new stadiums from scratch, so FIFA said, split it up. North America raised its hand, and just like that, history was made. Okay, so how are the games actually divided? Here's where it gets interesting. The US is hosting 78 matches, Mexico is hosting 13, Canada is hosting 13, that's 104 total. So if you're keeping score at home, and you should be, the US is running roughly 75% of this tournament. This sounds like a partnership the way a group project is a partnership when one person does all the work. But there's a reason for it, and we'll get to that. The US has 11 host cities: Atlanta, Boston, Dallas, Houston, Kansas City, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Seattle. Mexico has 3: Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. Canada has 2: Toronto and Vancouver. 16 cities total, all of them hosting a World Cup for the first time except Mexico City's Estadio Azteca, which has now hosted World Cup matches 3 separate times, which is genuinely insane. That stadium has seen more World Cup football than most countries. The power pyramid, who gets what stage. This is the part that really matters. Mexico and Canada host the group stage. That's it. Well, almost. Mexico gets some round of 32 games too, which is the new knockout round that exists because of the 4-8 team expansion. Canada gets a few round of 32 matches as well. But once you get to the round of 16, it's the United States only. Quarterfinals, United States. Semifinals, United States. Third place match, United States. The final, New York's MetLife Stadium, July 19th, in front of 82,500 people. In theory, all 3 countries share the tournament equally. In practice, the US owns every match that anyone will remember. Mexico's role, the opening act. Mexico doesn't get the final, but Mexico gets something arguably more valuable for a football culture like theirs, the opener. The very first match of the 2026 World Cup is Mexico versus South Africa at the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City on June 11th. That's the same match that opened the 2010 World Cup. FIFA loves a callback, and Mexico City opening a World Cup in front of a packed Azteca is exactly the kind of moment that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Mexican football culture is as passionate as it gets. Tailgating that rivals the actual game. Chants that don't stop. Drumming throughout. If you're going to kick off the biggest World Cup in history, Mexico is the right energy. Mexico plays all its group stage games at home: Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. All 3 stadiums. That's a significant home advantage that Canada and the US don't fully replicate because their teams play across different cities. Canada's role, small but mighty. Canada is only hosting 13 matches, all group stage, and a handful of round of 32 games. Their 2 cities, Toronto and Vancouver, max out at around 55,000 seats each, which is smaller than many US venues. Canada has never hosted a men's World Cup before, so even hosting 13 matches is a huge deal for Canadian football culture. Here's the thing about Canada though, they qualified automatically as a host nation, and so did Mexico, and so did the US. 3 automatic berths just for hosting. That's wild. Most countries spend 2 years grinding through qualification. These 3 showed up because they own the building. The US role, the main event. If Mexico is the opening act and Canada is the warm-up show, the United States is the headlining arena tour. 11 cities, 78 matches, every single knockout game from the round of 16 onward. The US is essentially running the second half of this entire tournament by itself. The semifinals are at AT&T Stadium in Dallas and Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. The third place match is at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, and the final, the whole thing ends in New Jersey, which everyone will call New York because nobody says East Rutherford when they mean the biggest sporting event on the planet. This is also the first World Cup final to have a halftime show. Coldplay is involved. FIFA took one look at the Super Bowl and said, "We want that," which is either the greatest idea in sports history or a sign of the end times, depending on your taste. But wait, logistically, how does this work? 3 countries, different currencies, different laws, different immigration rules, different time zones. This sounds simple. It isn't. FIFA essentially operates as its own governing body inside each host country. They negotiate specific agreements with each government on things like tax exemptions, stadium operations, and broadcast rights. But here's the practical chaos. A fan with tickets to a group stage game in Monterrey and then a knockout match in Dallas has to cross an international border in between. That means visas, customs, flights, and scheduling nightmares. FIFA created a special tournament credential that helps with some of this, but it's still a logistical challenge that no previous World Cup has ever had to deal with. Also, 3 different time zones within the US alone. Add Mexico City and Vancouver and you have matches kicking off at every conceivable hour for someone somewhere on the continent. Broadcasters love it. Fans watching at 6 a.m.? Less so. So who really wins the hosting rights here? Look, the US wins on paper. Most games, all the big games, the final, the television revenue, the tourism dollars. It's not close. But Mexico wins on legacy. Opening the tournament at the Azteca, playing all group games at home, in front of some of the most passionate football fans on earth. That's a moment that will define Mexican football history. And Canada wins on arrival. They're finally, genuinely, on the global football map in a way they've never been before. 3 countries, 3 different versions of what it means to host the World Cup, and somehow, FIFA made it work. Here's the takeaway. The 2026 World Cup isn't really 3 countries hosting equally. It's one giant tournament, with the US in the driver's seat, Mexico at the wheel for the opening ceremony, and Canada along for the best ride of its football life. And the real reason it exists this way is because 48 teams needed a home, and North America was the only region big enough, rich enough, and connected enough to pull it off. So the next time someone asks you how 3 host countries work, now you know. And here's a question worth thinking about. If this works, does it change how the World Cup is hosted forever? Could we see a 6-country tournament next? A whole continent? FIFA's already thinking about it. And honestly, I don't think they're wrong. If you want more breakdowns like this, the formats, the tactics, the stories behind the biggest tournament on the planet, subscribe. New video every week. We keep it simple. We keep it interesting. That's the deal.